Good afternoon and welcome to the first principles message of Term 2. I hope all of you had a wonderful break with your families, and I know our students have really enjoyed Exit Week, which occurred in the first week of Term 2. What I would like to talk a bit about today is I've been thinking a lot about the concept of winning and what winning means, and it's really been brought into sharp relief for me with events that have happened over the last month or so, particularly in the sporting space. As many of you would know, I'm still playing cricket, and as you can imagine, the events in South Africa towards the end of Term 1 really caused great consternation within Australia and of course across the globe as well. And it really got me thinking about what it was about the Australian team that generated such a level of interest and vitriol in some cases amongst the community. And I think it was desperately sad what happened, and probably even sadder the outcome of it, to watch those three young men bare their hearts and souls in media conferences when they returned to Australia. But for a long time, the Australian cricket team had a real ethos of hard wins and I suppose in some ways playing right up to the edge of what's deemed acceptable. And playing hard is one thing, but playing outside or at the edge of the laws of the game really brings into sharp focus what it is that we're actually playing about. And if I look at what happened in the cricket and in sharp relief consider what happened in the Commonwealth Games, I see really two very distinct versions of what winning means. Now, I don't know what you were like, but when I was coming up to the Commonwealth Games, I sort of thought, a bit ho-hum. But I actually watched a lot of the games and found it really interesting and exciting, probably helped by Australia doing really, really well. But there was one particular event in the Commonwealth Games that I was really drawn to, and that was the women's 10,000 metre race inside Carrara Stadium. And what I was particularly drawn to was not actually who won, but what happened right at the end of the race. And right at the end of the race, the winners had won, and there were three Australian competitors in the race, and none of them placed. But the race was won, and all of the runners left the stadium. And there was one lone runner from an African nation called Lesotho, who was, in the end, 2 laps behind the winners. And what happened, which I thought was really wonderful, was that all of the other runners left the stadium, but the 3 Australian runners stayed there and waited for this African runner to finish. And as she came across the line, the 3 Australian runners greeted her, gave her a hug, congratulated her for doing her best. And for me, there was really sharp relief when I look at what winning meant for the Australian cricket team and what winning meant for that African runner and the 3 Australians who waited for her. I always remember the very famous Bill Shankly, who was a Liverpool football coach in the 60s, said when he was being interviewed about a match, he said, "It's not a matter of life or death, it's more important than that." And I wonder whether his thinking around winning was what sort of became the Australian cricket team's thinking around winning. And I would say to all members of our community that there's lots of different ways to win, and people will forget through the passage of time people who win ugly, which is what the Australian cricket team said they were so proud to do. But people will remember, they will remember those 3 Australian runners at the end of the 10,000 metre event, and they'll remember that they waited for the person that ran in last that was 2 laps behind the leader. People will remember the famous Australian mile where the Australian runner stopped and waited for another runner who'd fallen over and then hopped up and continued running. So there's lots of different ways to win. What I would say is that famous old adage, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game that really matters. And so I would be saying to all members of our community, winning comes in different shapes and forms. Sometimes you win the race, sometimes you get the blue ribbon. Sometimes winning is just competing and finishing. But it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the race that defines who you are as a person. So keep trying hard, doing your best, and trying your hardest is the most important thing, because people who try their hardest, whether they come first, second, third or fourth, are the people who are the winners.